Assalamu alaikum. This is Nabila Malik with the next episode of UN Gender Talks. Today we will be talking about something that is very relevant, very important to discuss at this point, and that is climate change. Not just climate change, but from the perspective of women. Are women just the victims? Are women just need help? Or can they play a role that is more important, that can bring them into planning, decision making? Will that make any difference? And today in the studio, we have invited two very, very important people who can answer some of these questions. So, welcome to our studio. We have with us Gift Chatura, Deputy of OCHA, and then we have Zulekha from NDMA, and she's specifically managing the Gender and Child Cell. Am I right?
Yes.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for making time for us. My first question to you, Zulekha, will be that women, when we have disaster, like, for example, so far, the current situation is, according to the stats that I have, that there are 289 deaths. And in those, 187 are women and children. There are 698 injured, and among them, 435 are women and children. This disproportionately affected situation, that is something that we are entrusted to explore and find out why are we still allowing that to happen. Where is the issue? How can we not prepare ourselves? It happens every time. Every time there is a disaster, there is flood, whatever, women are the ones who are affected the most. So you are managing the Gender and Child Cell. Tell us about it. What is your take on it? What are the challenges that Pakistan is still unable to deal with?
So this time around, if you go through the SITREPs, which are the daily situation reports that are issued by PDMAs, and then, NDMA then issues them further for all the humanitarian stakeholders, you would be surprised to see that the number of male casualties are more than the female casualties, which was also very surprising for me this time, because this time around, the casualties are more because of the flash floods and the rains rather than house collapses. In the past, there were house collapses and women used to be in the houses. That's why they bore the brunt of being, a casualty, like, death or an injury. But this time around, the paradigm has shifted, and because of the floods, that is happening. The thing is, every time a disaster happens, we make a lot of commitments. We make a lot of commitments at the federal level. Our humanitarian partners also come on board and make commitments. But that is short-lived. We just address that disaster there and then we move ahead and start doing something else, which should not be the case. If we have built a momentum in addressing a disaster, we should not just stop it there. We should rather take it forward, that the good work we are doing, let's finish it, take it to some fruition. It should have some sustainability aspect into it, and that it should not happen again. This is the base. The flaw is in the system of addressing a disaster. And due to climate change, these disasters will be more frequent, more terrible, will create more devastation, and we are still not prepared for that. And why? Because all of us stakeholders in this humanitarian cycle of preparedness and response and relief, we are not still working together. Under NDMA's guidance of the current chairman, we have tried making a very unified response towards disasters so that this does not happen. And we have succeeded somehow. We have succeeded a lot in many of the areas. But still, we need, the will of our partners that this response is just not for response. This response is for sustainability and not letting such incidents happen in the future.
Gift, I take two things from this. One, if men were more affected, which is not what we want everybody to be safe. The preparedness level should be at par, and it should be such that both men and women and children can be saved. She pointed out to two things. One, there is still flaws with the preparedness of level of Pakistan for these disasters, which we can all see is probably going to be more frequent than we like. One, do you agree? And the other thing is that we don't have a unified front. Everybody's doing something on their own, a little bit help there, a little bit. The sustainability of it, the united front of it. What is your take on that?
I think we need also to start maybe to look from the positive. I always like to look at positive things rather than negatives. Yes, I'll talk about how women are also affected disproportionately in terms of this. But in terms of preparedness, if you look at the level of preparedness in 2022 and our level of preparedness now, I'm happy I came in Pakistan in 2022. So when I look at the milestones that have been achieved, there is quite a lot. The assessments we did in 2022 were actually, I think, only maybe 2% were female enumerators. But now we're talking over 40% of enumerators being females. So I think that's also a change. That enhances our preparedness in terms of capacity building and whatever and like. And then the level of preparedness also needs not only to focus on women, but also on men. So that because we are all impacted by the disasters, including children as well. So that helps quite a lot in terms of the level of preparedness. If you look this year, anticipatory action is no longer just a talk show. It has been implemented into action, whether it was for the heat wave or for the floods. So that's something different. If we draw back to 2022, that was not there. So there is positive strides that have been actually done by the government, by the humanitarian community, which we need to acknowledge. Then coming to the other side is that women are actually affected disproportionately by disasters. Why? It might be the issues of the economic situation, the social settings, cultural settings. And then we also need to know that in rural areas, women depend more on climate-impacted resources. You are talking of land. You are talking of water. You are talking of even their livelihoods in terms of farming, and even where they use firewood, charcoal, or coal. All those resources, they are also linked to climate impact and climate issues. That alone makes it very much expository to them as females. They are more vulnerable to those which are climate-induced. We also need to acknowledge as individuals, as institutions, that some disasters are recurrent, predictable, and they can actually be mitigated. So our investment should be more on the mitigation part, which has been done entirely like this year in terms of flood mitigation, flood alerts. NDMA has got a platform where they send in alerts. The district disaster management authorities have also enhanced their preparedness. The PDMAs have also enhanced their preparedness. Yes, we can't stop the disasters from happening, but we can actually mitigate. But in these mitigation measures, we also need to invest more in terms of women because of what I said in terms of their exposure to some of these vulnerabilities.
What role the civilians can play? Like, for example, this time the flash floods came and they claimed a lot of lives. But before that happened, there was a window where the help could have reached the people. There were people watching that. why were they not being able to help anyone? Do you think it's worth investing in the training and awareness of the people? Not just awareness, but the training that something like this happens, then what are they supposed to do so they can be helpful? And is the government or is OCHA thinking about that, doing something about it?
Yeah, thank you for that. Our investment in capacity building can only be sustainable if it is community driven. If we draw it to the communities, if it is more of top down, it will not have that traction. It will be limited. But if we have initiatives, volunteers, for example, we have agencies organizations like the Pakistan Red Crescent, Al-Kamat Foundation, they have volunteers. So if they can also invest in volunteers at local level, not only in towns or in districts, at local level, and also mapping those areas, the hotspot areas, it is critical. When you map your hotspot areas, which was also done, it helped particularly in Punjab, that because of the mapping that was done, people were moved to safer areas, and the government, through the PDMA, DDMAs, and NDMAs, they were able to actually pre-establish what we call relief centers or
The camps.
camps.
Yeah.
I think it was all in all 2027. But it doesn't mean to say you need to put in people, but you're doing like a preemptive measure, which is more a preparedness and a proactive measure in the event of the worst case scenario. So I think those measures are important. Those measures were not there in 2022. So that is something which we can do. As civilians, we need to have that calling of assisting each other rather than waiting to say, we wait until it has happened. We also need communities to take heed of the awareness, the alerts. There are alerts that are shared by different institutions. But at times people look at it as generic. It is always coming. We have been told that it is likely to do so. The meteorological department is giving another warning. We just take it like that. And there is that notion whereby we also need to look at living with the risk. When you live with the risk, you will not have any challenges. I know of one country where floods happen, but the impact is minimal. Why? They've accepted to live with the risk. They've also changed even their building codes. Yeah. They have houses in areas that are flood prone that allow water to pass. They continue with their activities. They also have areas where they can actually go. This is Bangladesh, which I'm mentioning.
Yeah.
They have places where people can go, which is much safer in terms of the impact of floods. So that's where we also need to look at creating a situation whereby communities need to know that we can still live with the floods, but without necessarily having huge impact. But that can only be done by investing in knowledge, investing in capacity building, investing in actually ensuring that awareness is translated into local languages. Because if we just have the awareness in other languages, which are maybe English or in maybe people would want it also in the Sindhi, they might want also in Punjabi, they want it also in Pashto, in other languages which are more common and prevalent in that. Beyond that, catch them young. What do I mean with that? Start off with the children in school. Invest in children in school. Tell them the awareness. If you inform a child in school, make sure that message that you've relayed to the child, when he or she gets home, first thing, mom, dad, we've been told, uncle, we've been told that it is going to rain today. We need to be aware of this. So that is also important.
Before I ask you to comment on that, because this is very important, living with the risk, that sounds like a very reasonable way to go. Is the government working on it? But while you answer that, while you tell us what the government is doing in that area, also tell us why was there a need to have women and child cell? And what is it doing?
Okay. So after the 2010 floods, they were very devastating. So there was a need that NDMA realized that, we should have a separate cell that actually, formulates policies and sees the needs and gaps that are currently in the disaster management cycle and address those. And then, with UN Women on board, NDMA decided to set up this separate cell, which then caters to the needs and concerns of vulnerable groups. By vulnerable groups, we mean women, children, elderly, disabled with intersectionality, elderly with their, after the age of 55 till the age of 95, and other marginalized communities. And this cell actually, susses out the needs, what are the gaps, where do we have to do an intervention. It is a cross-cutting theme across all NDMA operations. And then this cell started working proactively, across the humanitarian sector, and started making policies for everybody. And then we had the national policy guidelines for vulnerable groups and disasters, which is, the Bible for the humanitarian sector. Although it is like 12 years old, but we have revised it, added other marginalized groups into it, added, a separate chapter on heat stress into that, because that was something, a burning issue the last few years, because, the effects of heat stress on women are way different from what they are on men. So that was a huge debate, that why are men not included in that? Why only women? So it addresses that. So this is why a separate cell was established. And even our act, the NDMA Act, even refers to that, to make vulnerable communities inclusive and, to address their needs. So that is how it came into being. And till date, it is running very proactively, being supported by its UN partners in all its endeavors. And we have partner GCC at the KPK level. KPK PDMA has full functional GCC. It was supposed to be that all the PDMAs have separate GCC cells so that we can all work proactively, but that didn't happen. There are bureaucratic issues and funding issues and HR issues, but 2 cells are working and they're working very fine.
That's good to know, but you did mention funding issues. What are the funding issues? Because we make policies, we make strategies, we do a lot of paperwork, but it cannot be implemented without the proper resources allocated to it. And I would go to the extent to say that nobody is sincere in making a difference unless they are able to, or they do in practice, allocate the required amount of resources to whatever interventions that are decided, or that it will help with the preparedness, with the response, with the rehabilitation. What is your take on that?
There are 2 takes. One can be the institutional one and one can be my personal one. So I can just give you something in between. So, why these programs and fundings do not work. Fundings are set allocated funds for some project. But what is missing in that is the sustainability aspect of it. It is for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, anything which we want to take it to, a certain level, to make it work, for people to accept it and make it part of their daily lives. It has to be sustainable. That is why funding lapses. It is for 1 year or 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5. It lapses, then what? Because we do not build in the sustainability or the scalability level in a project, then no matter how much funds you pour into a project, it will not work. We do have to make sure that the project that we are making for a certain community, in the end, that certain community should be able to own it and take it further themselves, rather than waiting for other humanitarian partners or the government partners to come in again with more funds to make it work for them. We have to take the communities on board to make all the projects work for them. This is the missing link. We make the projects for optics, which is not right. It should not be like that. And I think it has been going on for a long period of time. But this year, in the beginning, we got a real wake-up call when, the cessation of the USAID funding. And now is the time that we rethink how we make projects, how we make projects for people, and how we make communities own those projects and make the projects themselves for themselves and implement them rather than pouring in money again and again. And another thing about the policies, I think at the federal level, if one policy is being made, then the rest of the humanitarian partners should not be taking up other, their responsibility, as we should make a separate policy also. That is another thing where our funds are going waste. One policy at the federal level is enough for everybody to follow. You can add to it rather than making all these separate books, the printing cost and the launch cost and all these frivolous things that are happening, and nothing comes out of it. We should be very focused and disciplined in what we are doing and what we are thinking and where we want to be till 2030. So this is my take on it.
No, that's a very valid take on it. Tell me, I believe what she's saying is absolutely true. But like connecting it with what you said, community, the one that is at risk, if they are put at the table, will that make a difference where the decisions are being taken? Because if I am being affected directly, my level of sincerity with the success of the project will be at a different level.
I agree with you. Communities have got their already known indigenous systems, knowledge systems that have been passed on from one generation to the
another.
other. If you take someone in that a particular area, they even know if it is a flood-prone area, they know how to dive, they know how to do these things. They might not need divers, they might even do diving better than the skilled divers. They already have their knowledge systems. So it will make a difference. I think involving them in decision-making, involving them in project inception is critical. We within the humanitarian community, we have moved a step further to have what we call accountability to the affected population. This means also we have to make checks and balances. Even when we're implementing a project, we have to do reviews, not just monitoring and evaluation. Do more of opinion surveys, get in the opinions of the impacted community, get their feedback. Help that into feeding back into our programming. The program which we did in 2024 for capacity building for the disaster management authorities and the local communities was as a result of information that came from the communities. The communities, they highlighted that it is at local level. That way we need to strengthen our. So with that, we then programmed a package designed with inputs from the community. And that's more palatable because the community, that's what they want. What is peculiar to Punjab is not the same as in KP. And what is in Nasirabad or in Dadu, in Kaipo, all those areas, they've, or the Kacha areas, they have different peculiar uniqueness. So designing a program, tailoring it to the communities, rather than having it more generic, helps quite a lot. Involvement is key. Gender disaggregated data is key. In our assessments, in our needs analysis, we need to capture that information. We need to capture the voices of the communities. That is the only way. It might be literal, just getting in. It doesn't cost you much to do a focus group discussion to get the opinions of the communities. But whatever you get from there is more unique and is more sustainable in that particular area.
Absolutely. Now, the thing is that when you talk about community, women in most of our remote areas are very shy. Although they do a lot of things, they're responsible for food, for water, like you said, other needs of the family. But when you ask them to give an opinion, they're not forthcoming initially. And I think Zulekha can correct me if I'm wrong, that we take the easy way out. People who will talk and give us a few recommendation, we'll invite them to the table. How do we get these women to come out of their shells, to be able to share with the world what they know and have been practicing to divert disasters or at least save themselves and their families? Because I believe they know the best because they're dealing with it.
It starts from we have been working together as the humanitarian community, also working with the guidance from the NDMA. Even in terms of our tools, the assessment tools, we've been actually working together. But what you are saying is that how can we make people come out of that cocoon where they are hiding? This is where I talked of investing in training assessors who are females. So you don't, so that it will be female to female engagement. It helps them to come out, to bring in. And when you do your focus group discussion, it's specifically for females. There is one for men, there's one for boys and girls. So differently. So you need to look at that. So that is where we shifted our intervention. And even our tools make it deliberate that in terms of your assessment, you have to ensure that females are included in your assessment team. By including them, then you'll be able to capture that. Because when you are doing now your focus group discussion, it will be now the females talking to females, not men. So that helps quite a lot in terms of that. So there's been a paradigm shift of recent. Previously, it used to be skewed to the negative. But with this involvement, ensuring female participation, we also want to applaud agencies like UN Women, UNFPA, UNICEF. We've been actually championing and also helping to ensure that more females and NGOs, local NGOs, I'm not only talking of international NGOs, local CBOs, CSOs, we've been empowering women in this regard. In our leadership for the humanitarian country team, there are deliberate slots for female leaders. So that helps in terms of cascading that even at pragmatic level, at community level. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Yes,
can I add
yes,
something?
I was
ma'am?
coming to you with the
In
same. Yes.
Yes. In the current scenario across the country, it's the age of social media. I think it's not very difficult for women to make their point. You can just hand them a mobile with a working Wi-Fi, and they will be able to air their own opinions, their own agendas, what they want. And I have seen a lot of women, from very remote areas, dressed up in their own cultural attire and addressing issues on a daily basis, making vlogs. And that I think we should tap rather than going for whole programs which can help them voice their opinions. We can give them these to make their vlogs and make money on the side and also air their opinions, and we take those and incorporate in our policies and everything. These days everyone is empowered. We cannot say nobody is
I
empowered.
love to believe
Yeah.
that because
There are issues. Every country has issues.
True.
But in Pakistan, I have found that, women, when given a voice, they give a very empowered opinion.
That's true. I believe that. Technology, it's a whole new subject and lots to say about that. But maybe we'll invite
yes.
you on to another
Yes.
one. But I totally agree with you. It opens the way avenues. And the younger generation is not like the older one. They are very forthcoming. They're
Yes.
not shy at all. So we can look at the younger generation for leadership. But tell me, are we doing something to support initiatives that are very community-based initiatives, water saving, seed banks, green farming? Is the government supporting to sort of make them more sustainable and work on these areas?
Yes, the government is doing that with all its partners. Different humanitarian organizations, INGOs and NGOs are working on that, and government is fully on board by supporting them in those endeavors. And in our National Emergencies Operations Center, we are also monitoring all the progress that all these organizations are making on all these issues. We are doing that on a daily basis. And we do have our partners coming in, giving up updates, what are they doing in a certain field. And yes, everything is being done and being taken care of, because the National Emergencies Operations Center is a very holistic facility which caters to everything from the tech-based early warnings to water scarcity to the global GCOP, which shows what is happening globally and what is happening nationally every day. And then there is the response section, the operations, the DRR part of it, the risk communication part of it, international collaboration. All these things, we are catering to everything in the National Emergency Operations Center.
Are you satisfied with the things the way they are? Or would you like to see some changes to actually being able to sort of, especially talking about women and girls, because you're looking after the Women and Child Center, especially when it comes to these vulnerable groups and other vulnerable groups? Are you absolutely satisfied with where we are heading, or would you like to see some changes somewhere?
If I would be, if I would be satisfied, then I would not be working here anymore.
Okay.
There is a lot of work to be done. The thing is, with changing times, with changing climate change, disasters, the spectrum of disasters changing, they bring in new difficulties, new challenges every day. And we have to think, on our toes every time. And there is no room to be satisfied with what we are doing. We have to think about new ways to address the problems arising every day. So, for example, why did we think of revising our national policy guidelines? Because the times have changed. The spectrum of disasters has changed. As I told you before, heat stress was never part of the first edition. Now it is part. And then there is a missing aspect of transgenders. There was no data about transgenders in the 2022 floods. We are also working on that to, incorporate that in the national policy guidelines. When that aspect is missing, then the, humanitarian partners do not address their needs, because they say these are not mentioned in the policy guidelines. So how can we address their needs? And then, in the initial document, it was persons with disabilities. Now, we cannot address every disabled persons the same way. It is persons with disabilities with intersectionality. Women with disabilities have different needs. Adolescent with disabilities, different needs. So we have go by that. So being satisfied is not, I am not satisfied. There is a lot more that can be done. We are just taking, big steps, concrete steps to make things happen, so that in the future, if not 100%, at least we can, achieve 75% of success in, saving lives, minimizing casualties, catering to women needs, making sure that they are taken care of before, during, or after a disaster. So this is how we are going. Being satisfied is not our goal.
I'm glad, because we need people who are not satisfied with the on-ground situation and are struggling to change that. Tell me, how can we change the image or make that switch of women seen as somebody who need help to women who are the leaders with solutions?
First of all, a thing that I always want to say in our meetings, that we always have the gender-based violence working group and the SRH working. We have to stop thinking of ourselves as victims. We are the agents of change. Every meeting that I attend, we have 10 women sitting at a table and with one man, and the constant narrative is that we need equal rights, we need our voices to be heard. And I look around the table and I think to myself, ladies, you're 10 women sitting here and there is only one man. That means you've already broken the glass ceiling. So don't say that over and over again. You've done what you wanted to do. Now there should be less talk and more work. Yes, more work, more action. We should stop thinking of ourselves through the sympathy lens and think of ourselves as we are leaders. We are leading a whole household, working outside in offices, working in the fields at first responders, and how can we think of ourselves as not being able to do anything? For me, that is the thing that, God has made us so that we can achieve so much. He has programmed us in a very different way from men. So I think we can do everything. And a concrete step that I think related to the communities, what we did this year, we have piloted a program for female university students, which is, raising an all female first response team in all women universities and female colleges. So the whole program would be such as, we would train a cohort of 30 students and teachers in the first semester who've just joined the university, and then it would be their duty for the next 7 semesters they would cascade their training in their university and make sure that every female in that university or college is trained, and then they would come on board as the female first responders.
Excellent. My question to you is the same. How do we change? I know she puts a lot of burden on women themselves, which I partially agree with. But still, what can we do to change that image or that role from being somebody always in need of protection, of saving, or to the leader who is part of the solution?
I think we need to move from the victim mentality, which she has alluded to. We need now to move to action, where you need to display what you can actually deliver, what you can do, rather than just to be on the complaining. Oh, this is not working. This is not doing. What have you done yourself? What can you do better to contribute to your community? Of course, yes, institutionally, we can talk of policies, which she alluded to. Policies are there. We are putting in policies. But if their policies are not cascaded to implementation, or they are not tied to resources, then it might be very difficult. At times, people always think of resources that are external. The human resources we have, those females in the community, in the rural areas, they are a critical mass that can actually help quite a lot. So that human capital which we have, we need to think of that. Say, let's capitalize on the human capital we have. Let's see what they can do. Let's not just leave them to say, oh, they should on the receiving side. Promote seed banks. Invest in that. Promote smart agriculture. We said that women are actually investing in agriculture. So let's promote agriculture, smart agriculture. Let's promote smart technology that can be used and women accessing that information and using it. Let's also look at alternative sources of energy. Rather than for them to spend time either looking for firewood, they can also use biogas from the animals, and then they convert it into their homes. By doing that, it means the time she was supposed to be collecting firewood, she is now using that firewood, that time productively for something else. Then the smart agriculture, as I said, is that promoting drip irrigation and other ways of mechanized agriculture. While you open up your tap and then you irrigate your crops or your vegetables, you are also doing something else. That also promotes quite a lot. Pakistan, you are endowed with a lot of cotton. And why not invest in women so that they can also do that kind of work, not only men? By doing that, you are actually promoting in terms of livelihood activities. Then you invest more. Where I come from, there is always a proverb which is shared in the village. They say that, I'm sorry, men, my apologies in advance for men. They say that if you invest in a woman, you have invested in a nation. If you invest in men, you have invested in an individual. So now we need to look at what kind of investment. We need not look at things that that require a lot of resources. The small things which we can do at local level, they can actually change the whole mindset.
Gift, I would like you to talk about the affirmative actions from your previous experiences. We were talking earlier and you said something that was very interesting. Would you like to narrate that?
Oh, yeah, it's true. We need our policies to look at how they can also ensure that the girl child out there can come out and do more. We need to have more aerospace engineers that are females. We need to have scientists, data scientists, or whatever work. But there are things which at times the institutions demand. They demand the same for a person in the rural areas and a person in the urban areas who has got all the facilities. They demand the same for a girl child who is out there, who has to go and collect firewood, who has got and wash dishes, making them at the same level with the boy child. So we need also policies to be accommodative of that by putting that kind of affirmative action, or not real positive discrimination. It helps us to leverage the girl child. In doing that, you will see the paradigm shift. But I also allude to what she said. She said, things have already changed. We need not to be crybabies. We now need to move. We now need to take action. You see, even in this podcast, it's one man and it's two females. So it's already that paradigm shift which we need to accept. But what we need to know is that, yes, there might be some constraints there. There are challenges there. And those challenges, whether it is cultural, economic norms, that inhibit women to do things, we need to see how we can address those things. We also need to look at providing more for females so that they can the space that allows them to do some activities. They might not be skilled in other areas like maybe craftsmanship, but there are traditional things which we have like carpets, craft work, which can actually be even promoted and exported globally. That can raise income, and then they can invest. That investment, which I've said of investing in a woman, will now be seen as realizing into a pragmatic reality.
If I was a fairy godmother and if I had given you one wish, anything you like to change in the policy and implementation vis-a-vis this disaster management from the women's lens, from the gender lens, what will it be? I'm coming to you with the same question.
Okay. It would be from the gender lens, not from
Yes.
the women lens.
No gender
Because
lens.
what I would like to change is, the general perception that people have when they hear the word gender, that it means women, it means a female. I want to change that. That is one wish, because then we spend like months and months teaching them that, gender is an all encompassing societal role. Sex is female, male, or the third gender. This I would love to change. And then I think things would be very easy for us to implement, make policies around. Because, being the head of the gender and child cell, whenever an issue with the female arises in our office even, or anywhere else, they say, go to the gender and child cell. I said, yes, okay, we are the gender and child cell. Does not mean I'm looking after, harassment of women issues or anything like that. The thing, these are the things that change this one thing in DRR, and we are way ahead. We can go places.
Yes.
She took my words. The issue is when we talk of gender, we should not just think of females. We have to look at both sides. I even before this podcast, we're talking about. At the end, at times the boy child might also be impacted negatively if we focus more on the girl child. And at times we go to a meeting and they say, oh, this is a gender meeting. Why are you here? Because I'm a man. Then it's like that is already discriminatory. It's already, we have to think beyond that scope. We need now to look at actioning it. The other way we also need to look at is to say, when we talk of gender, let's look at it from a broader perspective. And then let's cascade it to communities so that it doesn't have connotations. Because if you take it to communities and you talk about gender, people just say, oh, it's for females, let the females go. I've seen it in some communities. Said, no, we're going to do a gender discussion. So, oh, yes, the females can join you. But they're not looking at it from a perspective whereby you need also to look at men. There is need also to look at that male motivation so that it's intrinsic. It's not coming from external. It needs to be within us. And we need all to be gender champions for both females and males.
Any last words that you might have for us? How can women be considered, like my question again and again is that they do a lot more than they are credited for. They are just not visible. Their contributions are not visible, not recognized, not acknowledged. And that is something that is hurting us. Because we recognize them, we acknowledge them, we can, like Gift said, promote them and actually come up with solutions that are local solutions and will help us address the situation that is there. What do you have to say about that?
So the thing is, women are doing a lot. We all know that. And, for a woman to promote a woman, that is the big question. We have this issue in Pakistan, generally everywhere, that, for women to promote other women, we face issues. Men do not have this issue. They have the bro code, and men have this, natural, brotherhood, and they can talk to each other. They can, promote each other and say good things about each other. But for women, this is an issue, and I'm also a woman. And I'm saying it myself, for women to come forward is for women to realize that we have to help other women come forward and, recognize what they're doing. Not just say, oh, isne kar liya hai to, acha, theek hai. Not let it come forward, just let it be. This, I found it to be such in my 50 years of life. This is what I've seen. And this paradigm has to change. This thought has to change.
Gift, do you agree that men are angels? They don't pull legs and they don't try to stop somebody from progressing?
Yes, it's difficult, of course, but I think she has said it loudly, that things have to change. We also have to look at positively. And if you're also going to ask me my wish, is that maybe my wish is that in the next podcast, we have more female videographers behind the cameras. I'm happy to see the moderator taking the lead, being a female. So I think also in future, we also want to see more female videographers behind the scenes. And then maybe my last remark is that empowering women is not only just a matter of equity. It is a strategic imperative for effective climate action. So we are not just looking at it as just gender or gender parity, gender equity, but it is more of a strategic position.
Thank you, both of you. Gift very interesting comments, and Zulekha, right from the heart. The pleasure is all mine to hear you both speak. And what I have understood is that the solution lies with the communities, with our women who are more engaged with these issues, because that is the role they are playing. Food is their responsibility. Water is their responsibility, health is their responsibility, communities are their responsibilities. They, by doing all that work, know what needs to be done. And I think my esteemed guests agree with me that unless you give them a seat at the table, hear them, give them an opportunity to tell you what the solutions are. What are the solutions that will work in this country? And your policies, your strategies will not be as successful as they can be. And with the fast climate change things that are happening, that we are witnessing, that scare us at times, especially the hailstorm really did shook us. Anybody who thought climate change is not for me, maybe it is for the rural areas, maybe it is for the people with not so solid homes, their reality changed that one day when we saw the hailstorm that we had never seen in Pakistan. And now, if we still want to close our eyes, if we still don't want to see how real this disaster is and how much we need to do to manage it collectively, like Zulekha kept on saying, united front with all the local resources and the global as well. And we are prepared. Unless we do that, we will be facing a lot of losses. Women are part of the solutions. They're not just somebody you need to protect and help. Make them part of the solution. You will have better and more sustainable solutions. With that, thank you very much. Till next time, Allah Hafiz.